happening, Turbo Toys here? But you can call me Turbsky, and today, this is going to be Jazwares versus Mattel. It's going to be AEW versus WWE. We're going to ask the question, boys and girls. Who did it better? So,
you want a war? You're going to get one.
Alright, first to step up in this series, we've got my fellow countrymen. And this is going to be a representation of both of these characters. It's going to be Pac versus Neville. It's going to be Jazwares versus Mattel. And to be fair, the rules are going to be pretty simple. This is going to be judged on head scans, articulation, attire, accessories, and basically the overall look of the figures. And we're also going to show a bit of respect for the age gap between these two figures. And I think it'd be interesting to see, in my opinion, when we do these videos, we'll see if the newer released figure will absolutely wipe the floor with the original figure that set the standard. So is the AEW figure going to kick the WWE figure's plastic behind? Let's find out! Alright, so let's first take a look at the King of the Cruiserweights representing WWE Mattel Elite Series 55. We've got Neville. Right, now this figure's based off his appearance at the WrestleMania 33 kickoff show in a match he had with Austin Aries. Now, that might be a conversation for another day. But let's start this one off by taking a look at the head scan. Now bear in mind, this one was done before TrueFX. And listen, I know TrueFX ain't everyone's cup of tea, but on a lot of figures nowadays, I think Mattel do a top-notch job with their TrueFX. But obviously it's only when they print it on the figures right. But look, nonetheless, this figure has everything you would want and expect from a Neville figure from around this time. Like, I really think the likeness on this face sculpt is great. If I was to be a little bit picky, I would have loved to see the eyebrows maybe angled down more so his expression seems more angry or annoyed. But again, that's no deal breaker, that's just basically a personal preference. It's the first time that a Neville Mattel scan has actually got a decent sculpted beard. Because there was another Hill-esque type of Neville scan that didn't really produce that. They got the classic point in their ears and I absolutely love that detail, and the hair is on point with the undercut underneath the long hair. And boys, I just really rate the overall look of this head scan. Alright, what we're going to do is move on briefly to the character he portrays in AEW. Representing Unrivaled Series 3, we have Pac. Now this figure's based on his appearance at All Out in Chicago, Illinois, where he was victorious in his match against Kenny Omega. Right, now the major difference right off the bat with this one is it comes with 2 head scans, which is a fantastic bonus. But in all fairness to Mattel, the Elite 55 was made before Mattel started producing 2 head scans with a figure. But not only that, I think Mattel was actually the first to start doing that before Jazwares even released Unrivaled figures. But, with that said, look at these head scans, I love how they've captured 2 different looks. I do like the hair sculpts on both figures, even though I've never been a fan of the stranded hairstyle, I just don't think it looks good. And that goes for Mattel figures as well, especially on Bret Hart head scans. Again, just my opinion, I just don't think it looks good, but all the paint apps seem to be painted on and applied really well. But do I think it looks like Pac? I'm going to be honest with you, no. A couple of defining points of what I like about what Mattel have done compared to Jazwares. You look at Neville, and no disrespect to him, he's got a massive spam, like his forehead is quite large. I mean, I've got a big nose, boy, so I really can't talk, but Mattel have captured the look of his head to a T. And I can see why Jazwares went down this route, but I really like what Mattel done to emphasise the undercut hairstyle look. But not just that, boys, the most important thing is the ears don't stick out far enough on the Jazwares head scan compared to the Mattel version. And when one head scan that's pre-TrueFX technology can dump all over 2 modern day head scans, in my opinion, we've got to give the head scan points to Mattel. Right, now as we move on to talk about the articulation, now Mattel have been known to have their fair share of articulation problems. They've had stiff ankle joints, loose arms, loose ab crunch. But again, being the older figure, Neville won't have double jointed elbows like a modern day Elite would have. But will Jazwares take on board what Mattel have done and improve on it? Let's find out! Right, as we look at the head scan on the Neville, and it can do a full 360 degree rotation, it is hindered a little bit by the hair, but you can still move him a decent amount left to right if you're looking to pose him that way. And like all Mattel figures, it does sit on a ball, and he does have the ability to move front and back this much. Both his arms raise up this much, and they do both have the full 360 degree rotation. He does have upper bicep rotation, and like we said earlier, he does have single jointed elbows. He has rotation in the wrist, and of course that's hinged as well. And as for the ab crunch, he moves forward this much, and of course he can go back as far as this. He does also have the ability to rotate his waist 360 degrees. And then moving lower to the legs, he is on a ratchet joint, so you can separate this much, so if you're doing any high kicking photography shots, then it's a great distance. He has the upper thigh cut rotation, and one disappointing thing about this figure is the fact that they've painted on the skin tone. And they've done this because of the knee pad design. So it's one solid black piece, and then they just painted on the rest of the skin tone. Now, it's not a problem, it's not an articulation problem, but I just find that a bit disappointing when Mattel do that. But he's got double joints on the knees that go back this far. So if he was going to do a big boot, then his front legs can move out as far as this. He has 360 degree upper boot rotation, but quite disappointing, both articulated parts on the boot are both frozen. Now this is a common problem for Mattel. It don't happen all the time, but it happens a lot. But regardless of this, the figure is technically made to have a lot of decent points of articulation. Right, now as we move on to Pack, he also has the ability to do a 360 degree rotation, but he's also hindered by the hair, much like the Neville figure. Now you can still move him a decent amount as well, left to right. Now his arms do raise up a little bit more than the Mattel, a bit like he's doing the Karate Kid crane kick, and you can spin them around full 360, as well as the upper bicep rotation, double joints in the elbows, and it does make such a difference when posing your figures for figure photography. And then he has rotation in the wrist, and of course that's also hinged. Right, as we move on to the ab crunch, and in all honesty, there ain't really one because you can only move it back and forth this much, which is really disappointing compared to what Mattel's does. And then if you force it forward too much, then the classic separation happens and it comes off the ball joint. Now, it's a shame because I do like the ball joints being on there. But however, you do get a good range of motion back and forth from the waist, and that's also on another ball joint, and it's really cool to have the articulation in that kind of place. And as for that waist swivel, it appears to be non-existent on this figure. And if you move it round enough, then it's going to come off the ball joint again. Right, it does have a good split, giving you a great kicking range. And these legs are on ball joints, and I don't like how the ball joints look, but it does give you a great range of movement. He has the upper thigh cut rotation, and his double joints on his knees can go back this far. Sadly, there's no upper boot rotation, and I don't think I like that. I find that a bit disappointing. And then the feet have a circular rotation style of articulation, which seems to be fine. But as we weigh up the pros and cons to see who takes the points for the articulation, I prefer the way the shoulder joints go up on the Jazwares compared to the Mattel. The double jointed elbows are a lot better on the Pack compared to the Mattel's version of Neville, but Mattel have progressed on since then, so I feel that's a bit of an unfair comparison. Because the Ultimate Editions and Elite 87 onwards all have double jointed elbows. Now, not that it's ever been a problem, but the Mattel does have the standard back and forth motion on the ab crunch, but I do prefer the idea of it being on a ball joint because it reminds me of what Storm Collectibles do. Now, it ain't quite working out in this figure, but I do prefer the idea of a ball joint rather than what Mattel do with their ab crunch. But it's not the case in this figure. Now, Mattel has the best waist swivel, but Jazwares does have that extra bit of back and forth articulation, which I think could make a great difference in posing. And the fact there's no upper boot rotation baffles me on the Jazwares compared to the Mattel, and I feel it's quite a bit of important articulation to have. But before the video, I did try and heat the boots on the Mattel figure to try and make them move better, and that's something you shouldn't really have to do. So both figures have good and bad parts to their articulation, but for me there's nothing major that separates making one of these the ultimate articulated version. So in this figure's case, we're going to give this round a score draw. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that. So as we move on to the attires, now I don't think there's a lot that separates these, because I feel that both sets of attires do the job that they're set out to do. Right, as we look at the Mattel, now this was from WrestleMania 33, and it's a cool attire, but at the time I think most people, including myself, wanted the black and grey trunks. The gold is cool with the Neville logo on the trunks and the detailed deco on the wristbands. And the designs on the knee pads, they're all there. And of course finished off with the black plain kick pads. But it is missing the bicep bands. But taking nothing away, it's a great looking version of Neville. As we look at the Jazwares, now this is from All Out in 2019. Now again, no complaints about this design. With the black wrist tape, bicep bands, his black and grey trunks, the knee pads with a design, and finished off with the plain black kick pads, all serve the purpose they're set out to achieve. Now a couple of things I really like about this figure's design is there's a great stitching detail on the waistband of his trunks, and the creases in the kick pad designs really add a couple of class touches to this figure. So I don't think any company done anything wrong with the attire, but the extra little details on the Jazwares is going to unpack the points in this round. Alright, now as we take a look at both figures' accessories, now we know that Peck comes with the choice of 2 head scans, but also included with the figure is a foldable chair. Now I do like having foldable chairs as the accessory. But as for Neville, he comes with his own builder diorama display stand. Now, did anyone actually display their figures using these? Also included was the top rope attachment piece, so you could make your figures look like they were jumping from the top rope. But for me, boys, it was all about this accessory. It's the WWE Cruiserweight Championship, and I think on 205 Live, Neville took this championship and he gave it the most relevance. Maybe along with Enzo. But if I'm displaying my figures and I want them to look really class, then you can't go wrong with a championship title. So, Mattel's Neville's going to pick up the points here. And lastly, I just want to touch up on the overall look. Now I'm just going to be blunt and say that I think Mattel's Neville just has an overall better look. The head scan's a major factor, but the parts choice used for this figure, I feel it suits the look perfectly for his time in the WWE. I love the figure and I really rate it. And look, I'm not totally knocking what Jazwares have produced, but if they would have used the torso design that they used on, say, Kenny Omega, it would have made a major difference. And if they would have kind of looked at what Mattel did with their head scan, with the hair and the head shape, then this might have been a no contest. But if I had to make the choice to only have one, then personally, I'm keeping the Mattel. So let me know in the comments, what one are you keeping? But as we go down to senior official Earl Hebner to see who did it better, and the winner is... it's the Mattel Elite 55, Neville! So boys, did you agree, did you disagree, who did it better? These are just my opinions. What former WWE stars are you most looking forward to seeing in AEW's Jazwares figure line? And what wrestler would you like to see go head to head in Mattel versus Jazwares to ask that age old question of who did it better? But from Peck and Neville, that's going to do it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, drop me a comment and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos just like this. Come follow your boy on Instagram and TikTok at Turbo Toys. Don't forget to just go out and be your absolute best today, boys. But until that next video, I will see ya when I see ya.